Now, okay, the next thing is the tribulation period. And it's mentioned quite a few times, that word, by the way. Okay? And so the tribulation period is the 7 years. How do we know it's 7 years? Well, first, before I go there, there's the Revelation, the book of Revelation, and the saints in heaven. You see, chapters 4 and 5 talks about the saints in heaven. So and then next comes the 7 years of tribulation, the second coming of Christ. And there you have more or less the panorama of the book of Revelation, following the chapters and the events. Okay, let's continue on. Daniel 9, this is a very key scripture. Daniel, he tells us it will commence when the prince, which is the Antichrist, who is to come, will make a firm covenant of peace with Israel for 1 week. Now in Hebrew, a period of a week can apply to years, okay? So when you see that, it doesn't mean in English 7 days. Okay? Actually, it means 7 years. Okay, a week, 7. Again, the number 7. Remember the number 7? It's always symbolic in Scripture, 7. And the 7 days, you remember the 7 days? On the 7th day, God rested. Okay? The 7 churches, the 7 seals, the 7 bowls, the 7 trumpets, and the 7 sevens. It's a number of perfection. That's why. God is a mathematician, by the way. And number 7 is a number of perfection. But anyway, here's 7. And so it's a 7-year period. And Jesus said, "For then shall be great tribulation." Jesus uses that word. "Such as has never been from the beginning of the world until now, nor ever shall be. And except those days had been shortened, no flesh would have been saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened." The elect are those that come to faith in Jesus Christ during the tribulation. We call them tribulation saints, the tribulation believers, okay? So that's what Jesus is saying. He said it'll be the most horrific time that the earth will ever experience. And so there's 3 sets of judgments during the tribulation period. There's the 7 seals, the 7 trumpets, and the 7 bowls, okay? And the 7 seals is very general, and the 7 bowls is intensified towards the very end. I believe that the 7 bowls will be the last 3.5 years of the tribulation, because they're the most horrific of them all, okay? But let's continue on. So the scroll and the 7 seals. What does it mean that Jesus is the only one who's worthy to break the seals of the scroll? Okay? The scroll is God's plan for what's going to happen in the future on earth. And no one can unseal it except Jesus Christ. Because all things were created by Him and for Him, and He has absolute power to break the seals. No one can do that. No creature in heaven could break the seal, only Jesus. So this is the title deed. The scroll is the title deed to what's going to happen on earth, and Jesus breaks each seal, and each seal represents a judgment. Okay? So that's what it means. Any questions so far on that? Because when you read that in Revelation chapter 5, you realize that the Bible says no angel nor any creature in heaven were able to open the seal except the Lamb of God. Okay? So when Jesus breaks the seal, action. Things start to happen. It's like the film director who clicks that, click, action. Okay? And that's breaking the seal. Action. Something's going to happen. Because he has the power to set it into force. Okay? So the first 4 seals are the 4 horsemen. Okay? And the first seal talks about the white horse. And the Antichrist is impersonating Jesus. Okay? The devil always transfigures himself as an angel of light in order to deceive. That's his strategy, is always to look like he's good, but he's not. He's evil. And so what this Bible is saying here is that the first seal is the white horseman, which will be the Antichrist. He will come and make a covenant of peace. Remember Daniel chapter 9 we just read? He will make a covenant. Okay, and right now the Jewish nation, they're wanting a covenant of peace. Okay, so this guy will come, he will offer the world false peace, and he will also take supreme political power in the New World Order. How many have heard that expression, New World Order? How many have heard the Economic Forum? It's all connected. Eventually there'll be one currency, and AI and quantum computing, all this technology is just going to, you know what's it going to say? It's the one who controls AI will control the world. That's what it's coming to. Anyway, and the biggest computer they have, I think, in one of the, what is it, in Belgium? Brussels, is it? You know what they call it? The beast. Okay. No, the Antichrist is actually a person, but whoever controls the beast. Okay. Anyway, we'll get into that later. And then the second seal, the red horseman, represents worldwide warfare. Jesus, remember, said in 24 there will be wars and rumors of wars, and one nation against another nation. And that's what's going to happen in that time. When that seal is broken, the second seal, that wars will break out through the whole world. Right now we have 55 conflicts happening in the world. Never before have we had so many conflicts. Never in the history of the world. In 2024, 55 conflicts right now happening. And I can make a list if you want of them later, next week or the other week. Anyway, so the wars and rumors of wars, and that's what the horseman represents, warfare. And then the black horseman represents worldwide famine. So there's going to become a big, huge economic crunch, worse than the Depression in the 1930s. Okay, I don't think anybody lived in the 1930s here. You're too young. But I heard a lot of horrible stories at that time. So what's going to happen? The Earth's economy will be in horrible state, and hardly anyone can buy food. And now, have you seen everything, inflation, everything's gone up, doubled, everything's doubled. It's just amazing, you know. I remember going, when I was buying, what was it, the other day I was buying something, I forgot what it was now, and it was double the price. Just what? And to going out to eat too, it just even a Big Mac. Good grief! But it's going to get worse as time goes by. Sorry, I'm praying that we won't be around. We'll be taken up. But that's the third horseman, and then the fourth horseman represents plague, disease, and death. And the fourth of the world will die of disease and pestilence. Jesus said in Matthew 24 that there will be an increase of pestilence, which is disease. And so that horseman, that seal, that when it's broken will bring incurable diseases. We have right now superbugs, and it's not safe going into the hospital just to have an operation. I've known already, I can count on one hand, 5 people, some knee surgery, others just heart valve or triple bypass, and they got a superbug and they passed away. And so penicillin is not working, antibiotics, because we've pumped so many antibiotics into people that these viruses and bacteria have become super resilient against the diseases. And so it's going to get worse. Okay. And then the fifth seal, okay, that was the 4 horsemen. Any questions on the 4 horsemen? I'm going through this quickly because there's so much to cover. If I was to do this, I would take about 4 months with you to go through every single thing here. Anyway, the persecuted tribulation saints, the martyrs who are under the altar of the Lord, will be avenged for their deaths. And so that's the 5th seal. Okay, and then the sixth seal, there will be earthquakes and catastrophes in the world, in the sky, I mean. And Jesus predicted this in Matthew 24 and Luke chapter 21. He talks about that there will be many earthquakes in various places. And their seismologists are actually recording earthquakes. And by the way, seismologists have been saying that the earthquakes have been increasing in the last 50 years. Okay? Some of them we can't sense the tremors, but they are looking at the tectonic plates of the earth, and they're seeing there's been more seismic movements. Okay? And so that will happen on the sixth seal when it's broken. They'll be really severe. And catastrophes in the sky. The sun will darken. I mean, the moon will darken, and the sun will be turning as blood, red. And then the seventh seal in heaven, prayer lifted up to God, and thunder, lightning, and an earthquake comes upon the earth. Okay? So the seventh seal, that's when, towards the end of the tribulation period. Okay? And then, like, the seals are the whole panoramic view of the 7 years. Okay? Now, with the trumpets and the bowls, we're going to be a bit more specific in those 7 years, okay, towards the end. Okay, so the 7 trumpet judgments, here we go. So the first trumpet will be hail and fire, and 1/3 of the earth's surface will burn. Ooh. So hail and fire. So it'd be like Sodom and Gomorrah. There were sulfur balls, like hail, fire. Actually, they found those sulfur balls that fell into the Dead Sea. If you go to Expedition Bible, you'll find Joel Kramer. He's an archaeologist. He actually goes to the place, and he finds thousands of sulfur balls, and he takes one, and he lights it up. And it came from heaven, these sulfur balls. It's just amazing. People think, well, it was a volcano, but there's no volcanoes around there. It came from space. Anyway, the hail and fire, 1/3. And then the second trumpet will be a huge volcanic explosion, like a massive mountain that will be cast into the oceans. And 1/3 of the sea becomes like blood, killing 1/3 of marine life and destroying ships. That's a huge catastrophe. Scientists have said if there's ever like an earthquake and there's volcanic eruptions, I mean, it'll be a catastrophe. Matter of fact, I just heard, I read when I was in the Azores, that the Canary Islands, there's one island, and they say that this could happen, that half the mountain in one of the Canary Islands, if it was to fall into the ocean, it would cause a tidal wave that would reach the Azores and flood the islands. And I was reading that in the Portuguese newspaper, and I thought, whoa, okay. So that's how volcanoes can be very destructive. Okay? So anyway, but this is one the mountain, massive mountain, is cast into the oceans. And then the third trumpet, the release of a huge meteor called wormwood, meaning bitter, will contaminate fresh water. So this huge meteor, and they're actually, did you know that NASA and other agencies only can trace 10% of the meteors? There's 90% they don't know. So they can accurately predict only 10%, but the others they don't know. It could be a comet or a meteor. We don't know, but it's called wormwood, which is given to us in Revelation. So it's going to be to contaminate the fresh waters, that people won't be able to have safe water to drink. And then the fourth trumpet, this judgment will affect the heavens as 1/3 of the sun, moon, and stars are struck, so that 1/3 were darkened. So what does this mean? The heavens as 1/3 of the sun and stars are struck? This sounds like a gamma ray explosion in space. For instance, one of the biggest suns in our galaxy is called Canis Majoris. And if that sun was put in our solar system, it would cover the distance from the sun to Saturn. That distance. That's like hundreds of millions of miles to cover all that space. Can you imagine a sun like that imploding? and what the effects could be for the stars and the sun and the moon. Okay, so that's what it's signifying here, that it'll affect that 1/3 of the sun and the moon and stars struck, and it'll be darkened, so the earth won't have enough light. So 1/3, that's so 33.5% dark. So it'll be dim. People will be eating by candlelight. Anyway, and then the next one is a plague of demonic locusts from the abyss will torment those who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. So during the tribulation period, Christians will have a seal. And I'm not sure what that seal is, but they'll be exempted. Just like in the plague that killed the firstborn in Egypt. Remember, the seal that they had to put was the blood on the doorposts so that the plague would pass by. And so probably something like that, I don't know. But anyway, and the locusts. So what we find here is some of the plagues of Egypt, in a sense. But this is more in a global sense, okay? The plagues of Egypt was geographical in Egypt. But God is always giving us a foreshadow of things to come when he gives us a hint in history. Okay, so these are demonic bugs from hell. Okay, we don't know what it is, but something. And then the sixth trumpet, an army of 200 million will wreak havoc, and 1/3 of humanity will be killed. And so that sixth trumpet, that's probably towards, the Battle of Armageddon. Okay, so there'll be a horrific war. 200 million, an army. That's huge. Huge. Okay, what's the population of Canada? Yeah, about 35 million, is it? That's what last I saw was 35 million, but this is 200 million. Wow. That's a lot of people. And then the seventh trumpet, it will introduce a series of spectacular events that will lead to the final battle of Armageddon. Okay? So the sixth trumpet and the seventh trumpet it's leading to the huge World War III, which will be the final battle, which will be the most destructive in the history of the world, worse than World War I, World War II combined. Okay? But Jesus is going to intervene before they destroy Israel. He's going to stop it. Okay, now, the 7 bowl judgments. And these continue on. I mean, there's judgment after judgment after judgment. So 3 sevens is what? 21? Okay, 21 judgments. Wow. Okay, here we go. First bowl introduces painful sores upon people who worship the Antichrist and they have the mark of the beast. So there's going to be, again, this is pestilence, sores on the body. And that will probably be because of the other judgments, because this is towards the end. When you have scorching sun and fire coming from heaven falling on the earth, guess what? People will have 3rd-degree burns. Whatever. Anyway, there'll be painful sores. Those that have the mark of the beast. But those that have the mark of God will be spared again. And then the second bowl, all marine life will die, thus polluting and infesting the waters. So, no more seafood. They'll all be dead. Pollution. Of course, if a meteor comes and the earth and the big mountain falls in the sea and all the sea is contaminated, well, you can see that. And then the third bowl, all sources of fresh water on the earth become polluted as blood. And so this is about, was it the sixth trumpet or the fifth trumpet, sixth trumpet? Anyway, you can see it's kind of duplicating a little bit, but more intense towards the end. And then many will die from the intense heat and radiation from the sun. So that's the fourth bowl. Also, you can read in Malachi chapter 4, verses 1 and 2. It talks about the same event of great fire and from heaven, which means space. And so there'll be an intense heat and radiation from the sun. Because why? Well, all these catastrophes that are happening, it's going to destroy the ozone layer. It's going to destroy the atmosphere, affect the atmosphere. Guess what? Radiation from the sun will penetrate. Did you know that it's radiation from the sun that makes us go old? Did you know that back in the time of the first few chapters in Genesis, people lived to be 800? This is what they say, that there was a canopy, a vapor canopy over the world that prevented the ultraviolet light of the sun. And when that was removed during the flood, you can see that after the flood, people's expectancy was shortening and shortening and shortening after the flood. And so that's what some of the scientists say, those that are Christian scientists, say that there was this canopy that protected the earth from the ultraviolet, and so people could live for a long time. Well, when God created Adam and Eve, they were to live forever. They would never die. There was no death. But because they fell into sin, death entered, and so it took its process, right? And they lived to be 900. Who was the oldest? Methuselah, he was 900. 960 years. Yeah, wow, almost 1,000 years. Okay, but then after that, you can start to see in the genealogy, was it 410, something like that? Yeah, so up to 70. Yeah, so that's what happened. This canopy was destroyed. And so that's why people today live to be a ripe age of 80, 90, and 100 by the grace of God. And there's an advantage of being 100. No peer pressure. Okay. That's right, all my peers are gone. Okay. The fifth bowl, the kingdom of the beast is plunged into darkness. So who's the kingdom of the beast? That's the Antichrist. Plunged into darkness because why? 1/3 of the sun and the planets and the stars. There will be darkness that will come. That's going to be a greater darkness. There's no light. How depressing is that going to be? Okay? But I believe the church will be taken away. Why are we going to go through this? If Jesus already took the judgment and the wrath of God from us, why is the church going to go through the wrath? Well, there will be conversions during that time when the church is taken, because a lot of people realize, wow, who are the ones that are not around? It's the Christians. So they were right. They were true. Oh, I need to give my life to Jesus. Well, it's too late now, but you can still be saved. The sixth bowl, the drying up of the Euphrates River, will allow demonic-inspired kings from the east to gather at Armageddon, where God will enter into battle with them. And that's the sixth and the seventh trumpet, remember? And this is the sixth bowl, so it is amplifying that event. And then the seventh bowl is poured into the air. A voice will be heard from the temple of God, "It is done," signifying the consummation of the tribulation. So when God says it's done, the tribulation is over, and flashes of lightning and thunder and earthquake, and then Jesus comes to the earth. Right after the seventh bowl. It's done, no more. Okay, any questions on the seal, trumpet, and bowl judgments? Okay. We just covered Revelation 6 to 19 really quick. Some of them do, yeah. If I could draw a diagram, it would be like the 7 years, and then the last 3.5 years, I believe the last 3.5 years is the trumpet judgments and the bowl judgments, which Jesus said the great tribulation. There's the tribulation, then there's the great tribulation. Okay? Okay, and what the Lord is doing here is emphasizing, the catastrophe that's going to happen. And if you want to avoid that, come to Jesus. He's the ark of our safety. He's the one that's going to save us from that. but there'll be tribulation saints, because 144 from the 12 tribes of Israel will be evangelists, about 144,000 evangelists. During the tribulation, preaching the gospel, there'll be a great revival. Many will turn to Jesus during the great tribulation, and God will send two powerful witnesses, a type of Elijah, a type of Moses, who will, and I'm going to deal with that next week, the personages of the tribulation period. So I'll be talking about the Antichrist, the false prophet, the 144 witnesses, and 144,000, and the two witnesses. And so I'm going to be talking about that next week, and you can stay tuned for that. Okay? Let's continue on. So that's what's going to happen. Catastrophe upon catastrophe. And, but we are to repent. That means we need to come to Jesus, repent from our sins in order to be saved from these great catastrophes that are going to happen. And Jesus said this, "For there will be great distress, unequaled from the beginning of the world until now, and never to be equaled again. If those days had not been cut short, no one would survive. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened." Well, those days is 7 years, or 3.5 years, if you're thinking of the worst of it. Okay? So there we are, the 7-year tribulation. So in the middle of the 7-year, when we talk about the Antichrist, he will break the peace treaty with Israel. There will be 3.5 years of peace, and things will be going okay, but in the middle and on, the worst, all hell will break loose. I believe because the church is taken. Did you know I believe that the church is the restraining force on earth? How do I know that? Because as believers in Jesus Christ, we are the temple of the Holy Spirit, and we have the Holy Spirit in us. And we are praying for people, we are evangelizing, we are calling people to come to Jesus Christ. So we are the constraining force on the earth right now. But once the church is taken, the demons will come and the devil, and they will dine. And that's when the tribulation starts, because it would be total chaos. Okay, but thank God the church is still on earth, restraining. Okay? Because the Holy Spirit is working through the church. But when the Holy Spirit is taken, when is the Holy Spirit taken? When we are taken. Because we have the Spirit of God in us. Amen. Okay. So that ends our session for tonight.